Hello, this is Julie Baroh and Brian Snoddy, and we are recording on August the 22nd, Monday of 2016, over at Krab Studio. This is take one. We've never done this before. We don't know what we're going to be talking about. We're just going to see if we can get the magic to happen.
Yes.
In under 30 minutes.
Yes.
So, if it all goes well, we'll post this and people can.
And then we'll do more.
Oh yeah.
Because it'll be fun.
And we'll invite more people.
Yes.
So it'll be extra fun.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And I'll get a better mic. So.
Well, this is fine.
This one's okay, but when you have more people, we'll have
okay.
to get really cozy. We'll either need multiple mics or.
Too cozy.
Yeah. I mean, we can mic everybody up with little lav mics and stuff.
Okay.
So anyway, let's talk about what you've done in the last couple weeks. Have you been to any local or regional events?
Yes, I went to Portland Grand Prix. This would be, a week and a half ago now?
Mm-hmm.
I was there all day on Saturday, from Saturday morning to Saturday afternoon. Signing magic cards, meeting the fans, selling artwork, and it was quite a good time, actually. Ended up going out to lunch with Pete Venners and Jesper and Spooks and Mark Tadine. And we all went and had a good time. I got to sit next to Anson and his girlfriend, Brenda. And I got to see Rob Alexander, who I hadn't seen in a long time, which was nice to see Rob.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see Chuck Lucas, and he's always a character, so I really like him. And that was about it. Yeah.
Now, what were you there for? Were you there specifically to sign cards or sell stuff? Or
Yeah, sign cards, sell stuff. I didn't really know about the Grand Prix, and I was sitting having beers on my birthday, meeting my friend Anne Marie, and at the Kona Kitchen, where all the cool kids hang out in Seattle.
Isn't that up on 85th?
Yes, it's on 85th and 5th. It's my home away from home.
Nice.
And I was having drinks with my friend Anne Marie, and Anson Maddox and his girlfriend called me on the phone. Hey, we just saw on Facebook it's your birthday. Where are you at? We're in your neighborhood. I said, well, I'm drinking at my favorite watering hole. So they stopped in, and they were eating dinner, and we were having drinks, and they said, you should come to the Grand Prix. So this is in late July, and I said, well, I'm not invited. No, just call Tim Shields, tell him you want to go. So I did, and Tim's like, yeah, come on down, it'll be fun.
Awesome.
And
this is Tim Shields of Cascade Games,
yes,
who runs Grand Prix, right?
Yes, and he does a wonderful job, and Tim is very nice.
Yeah.
So it turned out that after a long series of events, I could only go there for the one day on Saturday. So I drove down. I got up at 3:45 a.m., which was really fun. And drove down. I got there about 7 o'clock and set up my table and signed cards and chatted with people all day long. And at 8 o'clock, I drove home.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a 11-hour work day with
Jesus
a 6-hour
Christ.
commute. It was crazy.
So I hope it was worthwhile, and you met lots of good people
I did.
and met lots of good fans, and
Yeah, overall it was a good experience.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, do you still do a whole lot of the convention circuit, or have you kind of checked out of that?
No, I rarely go to conventions. Now I am a full-time employee at Flying Frog Productions, and we do go to Gen Con every year as a company.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm there. I was there. That was just a few weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I do go to the local Emerald City Comic Con, although this year I was told we do not have a table.
Oh.
Long story, yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
No, and I do go to PAX every year as a company again,
Right.
with Flying Frog. Other than that, I really don't go to a whole lot of shows. I went to the Grand Prix in Tacoma last year,
Okay.
and yeah. But that's about all I do. I don't go to any other shows that I can think of.
So do you do a lot of freelance work, or you?
Yes, constantly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am constantly working on 2 to 3 to 4 freelance jobs.
On top of a full-time job?
Yes,
Why?
because I am a workaholic and I don't know what to do with myself. Really. And people keep asking me for artwork, and
You
they're
can't say
willing
no.
to I can't say no.
So speaking of all of that,
Yeah.
do you have anything that you do on the side?
Yeah, like freelance jobs.
Well, I mean, you have side projects that you work on that are not necessarily illustrational.
Yes, I am going to be recording an audiobook.
Oh.
Yes. It is the memoirs of a ex-Mafia associate who had ties to the Kennedy assassination. And I will be doing he wrote a very short little memoir, and I'm going to be producing that as an audiobook.
Oh, are you going to actually be the voice?
Yes. So I'm
Are you going to
practicing.
do all your voices?
No, I'm just going to do one reading voice. I'm not going to do voices for different people.
Because I think that would be pretty awesome.
Oh, no, it wouldn't be. No, I'm not good with voices.
So, let's see. Now, some of the ideas I had for doing a podcast, other than just talking about what everyone usually expects you to talk about, which I think is kind of boring after doing that for 20-some years of interviews where people say, so, what was your favorite card?
Yeah, what's the favorite card that you painted for Magic?
Right. Do you play? Things like that.
Yes.
And
see, we're doing voices right now.
Yeah, this
But
is my
not-
voice of other people.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, that's the voice I do of
Yes.
you. Kidding. No, but I was like, I thought would be kind of interesting is to get an idea of like what people are interested in beyond their professional work as a commercial artist. Like for instance, you've gotten pretty involved with all the mob
Mob
stuff.
I'm not involved with the mob stuff. Okay.
Oh,
Let's
come
make that
on.
real clear.
Yeah. No, you developed an interest, I think, through, it was beyond Deadfellas. I think it was, you were interested in gangs first, right?
Yeah, street gangs and organized crime in general, and its effect upon the American public and the public at large, even in other countries. So it's very interesting because you never learn that in school.
No.
Yes.
No, I don't think they learn anything in school.
No, they don't. They don't learn jack duty in school.
No. I don't remember much. I was actually a good student in school, but I had a feeling that everything I was learning was not going to stick. And I think the thing I found really frustrating was I actually enjoyed learning about history, but there was something about the way we were learning it that made it so boring
Yeah, I agree
and
with you.
homogenous that I would immediately forget things. And I think, I did read a really good book on the history, school textbook history, and how off it is in terms of what really happened.
Oh yeah, it's garbage.
It was fascinating what I didn't learn, and I do know that a lot of the textbook stuff was gauged towards testing, and all the information in there was the stuff that you were going to be tested on, to like scholastic testing, so your school could get up there in rank.
Oh yeah, so they could get more.
So they could get more money.
Government money, and
Right.
they could dumb down more people.
Um,
Yeah, I know the racket.
Yeah. So actually, it was learning all sorts of interesting things about like our stay in the Philippines and what
You learned about General Jack Black Pershing.
I don't know if I
He
knew.
was when we were in the Philippines.
I
It's
think
during-
so.
Yeah.
Wasn't it during that big massacre?
prior to World War One?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned about what an asshole Woodrow Wilson was.
Yeah, that's the understatement of the 20th century.
Yeah. Didn't he fund Birth of a Nation, the movie?
I don't
That was
know, but he did
primarily-
introduce us to the Federal Reserve, and that's where we get income taxes. And he got us into World War One. That worked
That's
out
true.
real good for us. And a bunch of evil other demonic stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, he was an interesting,
yeah.
horribly racist fellow.
That was the least of his problems.
His wife was worse, I heard. Actually, I read that she was even worse than him.
Oh, two peas in a pod.
Yeah. But anyway, I actually learning past high school, history beyond high school was actually far more interesting
Oh yeah, I
than
agree.
what I was learning in school.
Mhm.
And I'm actually reading a book. I started reading it, so I'm not that deep into it yet. But it's a book called Propaganda. It was written in 1928 by a guy named, I think his first name was Edward. It was
Edward Bernays.
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He was the grandson of.
No, he was the nephew.
It was the nephew of the psychiatrist Sigmund Freud.
Sigmund Freud. Yeah,
I know who Edward Bernays was.
And it's so far the premise. I actually was listening to a NPR show about him and the effect that he had. And initially, that propaganda was created during World War One, around the time of World War One. Where it actually, prior to that, the word propagandist wasn't even in our repertoire.
Lexicon.
Yeah, and it wasn't till post World War One that the word actually started to pop up. And he was one of the reasons it popped up. He was one of the original great propagandists
Oh yeah.
of the 20th century.
Set the tone for what's going on today.
Oh, absolutely. He was the one who basically, rather than sell something, he would sell the environment that something
Yes.
needed to be in.
Yep.
So rather than selling, for example, bacon, they use this as the example, and rather than selling bacon, he would sell a hearty breakfast with bacon
Yes.
that physicians would endorse. So his whole thing was like, well, who do people trust? Well, they trust their physicians. Well, if physicians say that you need to eat bacon, and then you must need to eat it because you're supposed to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And
He also got women to smoke cigarettes.
Yep. Although later on in his life, he actually went the other direction. And after he started, there was so much information tying cigarette smoking to poor health that he himself quit smoking and started to advocate the opposite direction. But by then, the tobacco industry was so large.
Oh yeah, they had a rack on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, he really figured out how to feed the dream to people and what you need to make the dream come alive. And one of his first groups that he worked with initially was actually immigrants, American immigrants coming here and wanting badly to assimilate into the American society, not stick out, you know. So so advocating the way a woman or a man should look, how to dress, what to drive, all these things were just eaten up by these new immigrants coming into the United States that wanted to basically be white. I know that reading, and I don't say white just as a color, I'm just talking about a complete package.
Yeah.
And I remember reading, doing work on my family tree, which I started doing not too long ago, and reading all of the censuses over the years. And it would say, you know, who's in your family, where you lived, how many kids were in your family, who worked, what they did, all that stuff. It's really interesting, by the way. And then what your race was. And it's interesting to note that unless you were clearly not white, like you were Asian or whatever, everybody would write down white.
Interesting.
Which was very interesting.
Yeah.
So I saw people in my family that were clearly off, they were fresh off the boat, literally, but they would write white, where nowadays, well, back then they weren't considered white at face value.
Yeah.
But I know that there was that, although everybody was very neighborhood-centric and group, community-centric, family-centric, at the same time, there was this desire to fit in and not stick out, to be like everybody else,
Yes.
to be American. Everybody wanted to be American.
Yep.
And he was one of those guys who was very good at it. He was also
He was a
the way
genius
that
at it.
he talked about things. He would talk about it in a way that was as if he was one of you. You
Mhm.
know, like he would talk as if he's just one of the bumbling idiots out there amongst them all, and that this is how the way things are, and this is how we all look at things, and when in fact he was the one inventing everything.
Yeah.
And it's just
Or
really,
promoting it.
yeah, it was really interesting in it, and
Yeah, Bernays is quite the. Yeah, and almost no one's ever heard of him.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you tell your 1 out of 100 people might know who Edward Bernays was. Maybe probably less than that.
Oh, I don't think I didn't know who he was, and
Oh, yeah.
I've worked in any commercial artist has worked at some capacity in advertising.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what we all do, whether you do book covers or games or whatever.
Sure.
That's what you're
Yeah, you're selling a feeling. You're selling a story. You're
A
selling
fantasy.
A fantasy. Yeah.
a nostalgia
Yes.
and this that.
Mhm.
That's what it's all about, and we all march to the beat of this man that no one's heard of, and men like him were meant to fly under the radar. Like
Oh, yeah.
he didn't want people to know.
Nope.
The only people he wanted to know who he was were corporations that were
Were the
selling
people
stuff.
that were writing his checks.
Exactly,
Yes.
and they all knew who he was.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knew who he was on that level, but none of us did, and they didn't want anyone to know.
No.
Because they wanted. He said the best type of selling is to make someone think that
They thought of it. Yes.
it up. Yeah.
Yep, and that's exactly what's going on today.
Yep. That's why it's really interesting to hear somebody cough up some rhetoric or propaganda
Mm-hmm.
that's old as the hills, that anybody over the age of 40 would know. No, I've heard this before. This has happened before, and anybody
Yeah.
under is like, oh my
Oh,
god,
it's brand new.
oh my god, that's just novel. And you're like,
Mhm.
no, that's actually old hat. I mean, even in our industry, people are rehashing things that are old, but people figure, well, no one remembers this anymore. I'm
Yes.
just going to pull it out of the...
Pull it out of my booty and see if I can rehash it.
Yeah, that's why
Yes.
it's really important. And back then, too, the other thing that was very interesting was how important it was to patent your ideas so no one would steal them.
Sure, that doesn't stop anybody now, though.
No, but if you've got a patent and somebody takes it and makes some money off of
Yeah.
it, trust me, you're going to get sued.
I know.
And people nowadays don't bother to patent their ideas. If they do have a good novel idea, they make, and we all do it because we all want to be liked in some way
Sure.
or useful. So, or
Normal people do.
or you sign an NDA, because I
Mhm.
do know that when I worked at a large tech company, we all had to sign these NDAs and these non-competes.
Mhm.
Additionally, if we came up with a brilliant idea while we were working for that company, they owned the idea.
Yeah, now that starts to get demonic
Yeah.
because they're buying your labor. They're not buying your ideas. And when they force you to do that stuff, that's when I got problems with them. And by the way, this non-compete horse crap too, I got a problem with that. Because if there's companies not, they're not treating you well, or you want to leave or something, you should be able to just walk into another company the next day and say, okay, well, you guys should have kept me. It's the way I think of it anyway.
Well, I think it also depends on the because most non-competes have a time period of time before you can go and
I know that.
a time period or an amount of regional space or whatever. depending-
Understandable,
Right.
but I still disagree with that because it really puts a crimp on your freedom. Because you walk in the next day, they won't give you 2 weeks notice before they fire you. They're going to tell you you're going to pack out your desk today, 99% of the time. Okay, but if I want to leave, oh, you better give us 2 weeks notice, young man, because we have to train. Goodbye.
Well, even if you want to leave, you still sign that NDA.
I know. And that's what I don't have a problem with not telling company secrets while you're there, and I still don't have a problem with keeping them quiet even after you leave. But a non-compete thing where you can't, let's say you get fired from they're going to lay off, 200 people, but your non-compete says you got 6 months before you could be hired by another software company or wherever you're working, right? That's not cool. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. No, I'm listening to you.
Okay. We stopped talking about magic cards about a half hour ago, I guess. I don't know.
I can't believe that we're old.
We are old.
I know. I feel like time flew.
It did fly. I blinked my eyes and there we go.
Yeah, I know.
The whole summer went past.
Yeah, you and I both had summer birthdays.
Yes, and we're both old now. I'm
I
older
know.
than you, though.
You'll always be older than me.
I know.
So
Yes.
I hope you're dead first.
So do I, Julie.
So tell me more about these characters that you've met some really interesting characters, and I know you can't, talk about
Oh boy.
like.
Some of the crazier stuff I've seen them do.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. I know a lot of really silly stories and stuff. My friend Angus is a character. He was a little boy during World War II, and he used to see dog fights.
And by dog fights, you mean?
I mean dog fights in the sky,
Right.
Airplanes. Mr.
Right.
Smith's versus Royal Army.
Right.
I mean the Royal Air Force.
Right.
Yes, and one day actually he was walking outside of his house where he lived, and this noise comes, and it's one of these V2 rockets. They call them the Doodlebug.
Didn't the ones that screamed?
Yeah, they made
Yeah.
these noises. Well, Angus barely heard it, and this guy walking next to him picks him up, puts him in a trash can, kicks him down the street, and Angus said he never heard an explosion, but when he got out of that trash can, the whole city block was gone, including his house.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's an interesting story.
Was the guy gone?
Yeah, the guy was gone. He didn't know who he was or anything.
Oh, weird. That's
Yes,
crazy.
that is a wacky story.
Well, that's not. I mean, now that's a sort of a sad story.
Yeah, but Angus is still alive, and he's been in 2 aircraft crashes. He's had quite a life. He's traveled to just about every country in the world. He's a pretty fascinating character.
Have you done a lot of traveling?
Yeah, a little bit. I've been to Japan many times, about 14 or 15 times, maybe. I've been to Germany 3 or 4 or 5 times. I lost track. Been to France 3 times, and Belgium twice. I spent a week right out. Oh, here's some good stories for you. This is really cool. So, Paris is a very interesting city because most cities in the world, you have your nice downtown spots, but usually the deeper into the city you go, it's very corrupt, and there's a lot of crime and a lot of drugs and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Paris is different, where Paris is pretty clean. There's not a lot of crime, not a lot of that kind of stuff. But outside, you have a ring of small little towns and things like that, and that's a hellhole.
Yeah, there's a place near Charles de Gaulle Airport that we wound up staying, and it wasn't terrible, but there was like nothing.
Yeah. Well, my friend Jean-Marie lived in a house in that area, St. Denis, and that's the name of it, which had the highest murder and shooting rate in all that area, and we heard multiple gunshots on more than one occasion for the week that I stayed there. It was good times. And Jean-Marie is terrified of spiders. So we come home late one night, and there's this big, huge spider crawling around on the floor of the garage, and he flips out. His girlfriend runs in the house. She's like, "Oh, Jean-Marie, calm down, blah, blah, blah." And he comes out. He's got a rifle in his hand. It's just a .22, but he's a gun, and he's shooting the gun. He kills the spider with the gun. He doesn't use a shoe or a box or a brick or a broom or a shovel. No, he's got to shoot a spider with a frickin' gun. And when I said, "Jean-Marie, you're shooting guns in the house here. Don't you think the cops are going to show up?" As he proceeded to inform me that all the Arabs that live on that street are blowing each other's brains out. And literally no more than 20 minutes later, there's multiple gunshots down the street. And he looks at me and he goes, "See?
Oh, gosh.
It's normal for this neighborhood."
Ugh.
So that's a fun story.
I used to live in a neighborhood like that.
Oh.
We finally moved to when I had to go to work one morning, and I walked to my bus stop, and there was nobody out because it was really early in the morning. But apparently about an hour earlier, there was a some sort of a fight that had occurred at the bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
And
What, there was like a severed ear that was laying
no,
there?
although we've had that happen. That was at another place. No, but somebody had gotten stabbed at the bus stop,
Yeah.
and they hadn't sent someone over to clean up the mess.
Oh, yes, it's a horror
So
show.
there's blood everywhere. There were pools of blood on the ground. There was splatter all over the windows
Forget
of the
about
place
it.
behind. So I'm standing there in my little business suit because I had to work as an admin person somewhere, sitting at this bus stop all by myself.
Was this when you and Ben were still living on Capitol Hill?
Yeah.
In that little apartment complex up near the B&O?
No. This was
okay.
earlier than that.
Okay.
We weren't even living together at the time.
Oh, okay.
But we both lived in the same, like within a block of each other.
Okay.
No, and I was just like, okay, I got him. This is right before he lived in a rooming house in a one-room place where he had he had to share a bathroom with
Okay.
a whole bunch of other people.
So you were probably all of 20 years old during this time? 19
yeah,
or 20?
probably 19 or 20.
Okay.
So this is right before we moved in together. But yeah, after that, I was like, okay, I gotta move. I can't do this
Because I met you a year before you got married, right?
Yeah.
So you were 20, and you got married when you were 21?
No,
Or
no,
you,
no.
You were 21, you got married when you were 22?
No. I met you. No, because then you must have met me earlier because I got married in '95.
Yeah,
And I was
met
25.
you like, okay, so I met you.
What, 93, 94? 94?
Yeah, I think it was 94. Yeah. Yes, it was 94. 93 or 94.
Yeah.
That was 94, because it was after the first set of Magic cards printed, and yes, it was 94, and we met up in Bellingham at that comic book
Yeah.
store. Yes.
No, the severed ear was when we were up.
Because I just made that
Later.
up. I just
Oh,
pulled
you made
out
that
of
up? Oh.
I don't remember that. I just made that one up.
No, that happened. There was a bum fight outside our place up on 15th
Yeah.
on Capitol Hill, and now it's much more. It used to be a really cruddy neighborhood. Now it's like really nice.
I know.
Um,
They've redone all those.
and there's like a wine bar and all this. Well,
There's
our
a wine
place,
bar up there every 3 feet now.
I know. We had a townhouse there, and then we had a gate that went out to the street. And I went to take my dog out for a walk, and I opened the gate, and I noticed he got really into something on the ground, and he starts picking it up with his mouth, right? So I was like, I thought it might have been like glass or something.
Oh, it's just a human ear.
Yeah, it was. It was a severed ear.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God. And then I looked down the street because I hear a noise. And it's the same two bums that had been fighting in front of my place, but they had worked their way down the street a little ways. And they were still fighting, but they were so drunk that the one that had lost his ear, I don't even think he knew that he had lost his ear.
Sounds like it.
And they were doing the slow-mo bum fight, where they're moving really slow and stumbling, and so I had to go back inside and call the cops, and I'm like, hey, there's an ear outside. You pick that up because my dog's trying to eat it. Sorry. I thought you knew about that. That's why when you said the severed ear, I was like, no, that was another place.
Maybe you told me that, and I was subconsciously remembering that story.
Yeah.
It could be it, So.
No, I don't know. I don't think I've ever found other body parts or anything like that. No. No other. We lived near a bunch of halfway houses, though, and there was one that had all these really mentally ill people living in it. Like they were all levels of mentally ill, but there was one house where it was like these people could not possibly live on their own. They're too far gone. And there was one that we used to call Windmill Man. And he would wind his arms like a windmill, and he would just stand on the porch and do that. And he was really, really heavy. So he's this really fat guy that he'd just stand there. That's all he'd do all day long. And I don't know what it was about him doing that. He freaked my dog out.
Wow.
So every time we walked near the Windmill Man, my dog would just
Go a little nutty.
He'd just, it was my deaf dog. So I don't know, there was something about it would just freak him out.
You're living next to crazy people with the deaf dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was.
Oh wow.
He didn't bark. I don't really attract weirdos that much anymore. I used to be a weirdo magnet.
Oh, I do. I am a weirdo magnet.
Yeah, you are.
Yes. If there's, it's funny because Mackie was. That's my wife, Mackie. And she was saying, honey, you're a Gigi catcher. And Gigi in Japanese means like grandfatherly type. If you say it Gigi, it's more derogatory. I can't tell the difference, to tell you the truth. But anyway, if we're out somewhere, we're at a restaurant, or we're sitting in the lounge before we're about to get seated, and there's some old guy, and he's been involved in, let's say, a war, if he's some kind of spook, or if he's an organized crime guy, or if he's some kind of super weirdo who's done weird, he will just walk up and just start telling me his life story.
Really?
I am not kidding you. This happens everywhere I go. They just walk up and they start sitting down just telling me everything. I've heard some of the nuttiest stuff you've ever heard.
Oh, I bet.
So, yes, the Gigi catcher.
And do you excuse yourself?
No, because they're mostly harmless. They just want someone to talk to and listen to them. And apparently I have that face or the right head shape or something. I don't know. And they just, start telling me crazy stuff. It's really pretty bizarre. And, I have quite a collection of stories from various people.
Maybe you should write them all down and illustrate them.
Oh, some of these things, I'd be thrown in prison if I illustrated them.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was so mad at me, my dog.
Really?
Like, that was probably, like, his one moment that whole week where it was like, oh, it's fresh. And it's been pickled.
Sick stuff. Oh, yeah, it's been pickled, yeah. Internally pickled.
Well, you know what where the bums came from?
Where?
They would put the people in the mission. They had a van. You know the mission downtown where they would,
Union Gospel Mission?
Yeah. In the morning, they put them in vans, and they would drive them to neighborhoods that still sold, where they had little mom and pop stores that would still sell
fortified wine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they would dump them in those neighborhoods, and then it would take those bums all day long to work their way back down to the mission. So by the time they would get there, it was time to go in and eat and sleep, and then they do the same thing. Well, there was a place about a block and a half away from our house that sold that stuff, and so they were busing, they're dropping the bums off in front of where we lived, and that's actually where that fight started. Was a couple of the bums that they kicked off the van were arguing and started fighting, and apparently in front of our place. And
oh boy,
the ear was actually bitten off. It wasn't even cut off.
Yeah, that doesn't. Well, the ears come off the head pretty easily, actually. This is one thing you learn in my self-defense class. It's good. If you grab somebody by the ears, you want to pull it like you're pulling a bow and arrow, and one of them will come off. And they come right off real easily, and it'll shock somebody, usually. Obviously, this guy wasn't shocked because he didn't know his ear was off.
I think he was still drunk.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Cool. Well, we'll talk more about these things.
Okay.
Next time.
All right.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Julie and Brian saying good night.
Good night
until
till
next
time. Bye-bye.
Bye.